Hi, my name is Evie Burke. I work for the Huntington Historical Society, and today I'm going to be showing you how to warp a 4-harness Jack Leclerc loom.
Right, so we're going to start with a quick overview of the different components on this loom before we get into actually warping. So here you have the reed. You can see there are metal slots here. Now you can find ones that are wider and ones that are thinner than this. It really depends on what type of fabric that is going to be woven. All of the ones that we have are, I think, 10 dent, which means that there's 10 in the space of an inch. So that could go either loose or tight with your fabric. So it's a very versatile reed. Then back here, these little metal bits are the heddles. So I will be describing in greater detail what all these pieces do when we're actually warping the loom, because I find it easier to explain it as you see it than just giving an abstract point of view. But these little heddles here are what we are going to be threading the warp thread through after we thread it through here. So these heddles are in 4 different frames because this is a 4-harness loom. So these frames are the harnesses, so that's why there's 4 of them. Now you'll notice every harness has this metal bit here connected to it, and that correlates to a lever here. So when you lift a lever, say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, you lift a lever 1, it lifts harness 1, which lifts all of the heddles that are attached to that harness. Now, when you lift the next lever, say you lift lever 2, lever 1 goes down. What you'll want to do if you accidentally get too many up, like I've done here, I've got 2 and 3 up when I only want 3 up, there is a little release mechanism up here. So this is what they all get caught onto here, and you'll just want to take this, pull it back, and it drops all of the harnesses. So we've also got 2 beams. You've got this one here, and then this one back here. So this is where your warp will be wound onto throughout the video, and I will go into that, of course, over greater detail. So those are the main basic components of this loom. As I go on, I will be describing other things in closer detail, as well as how to actually warp this loom. These looms are collapsible, so I'm going to go over how to open and collapse them really quickly. So to open them, there are these levers here, and you'll notice if you press in, it disconnects from this bolt here. Now there are a few looms that it's the same exact setup, except it disconnects from the bottom. It's the same principle on both of these looms. So you'll want to lift 1 and lift 2, and you'll want to have them lifted at the same time, or you can press them in if you're doing it one-handed like I am. Then this loom will fold backwards. Here, I'll get a little side view. It'll fold back, and it'll fold nearly flat. So that way you can stack these, and I usually stack them like how you stack a binder, one with the head this way, one with the head that way, and you can stack easily 2 or 3 at a time without worrying about them tipping over. So to get this back up, you'll want to take this top bit here. Well, first what you'll want to do is make sure that the little metal bits that it gets caught on are above and not under the loom. So these are, you want to take the top bit here, pull it forwards, and it'll set up the loom. So then what you'll want to do is you'll want to catch the heddle here. This is a little tough doing one-handed. You want to catch the heddle here. You want to pull it forward so you can see in here and see what you're doing. So you'll take the little metal levers, you'll pull your loom up so you can catch it on these. You just do that with each side. Shove it around a little, make sure it goes in. And there we go. It's not going anywhere. Okay, so I have the warps that we are going to be using today here. I have a blue one and a pink one. This pink one is 40 threads, and this blue one is 20 threads. Now, I like to warp using 80 threads. However, for demonstration purposes, I will be using 60, just because it'll go a little bit faster for me, and I will be able to get this done in a timely manner to be able to actually record the entire thing. So the type of warp thread we have here is a cotton carpet warp. This is not typically what I would use in my own weaving practices, just because it's thicker and it doesn't look as nice as end product, but for the society, I recommend using this because it is very thick and it will not go anywhere. If you pull, it's not gonna break. that hurt my finger. Like, it's not going to break. So highly recommend using this. It comes in a billion different colors. It's fairly cheap, as opposed to smaller ones. It weaves up fairly quickly, and you don't have to really worry about the friction causing it to fray quickly like other ones, such as Tencel or silk or anything like that. It's all around a good warp thread to use for educational purposes. So I'm not going to show you today how to create the warps because I do not own a warp board, and that is what is easily accessible to the society. And I don't want to show how to do it on a warping mill because why would I show? It doesn't make sense to show how to use a warping mill when that is not an accessible tool for the society. So you will be creating chains like this on a warp board. It'll just be a different process. Also, I have not used a warp board in many years, so I don't think I'm that qualified to teach about it because I do not do it the correct way. Right, so let's get into the actual warping. Okay, so I have you guys set up on top of the loom now. This is our reed. So I'm first going to show you how to prepare the warp. So I'm going to start with the blue one. Now you're going to want to take the end that is unraveling. You see it if you pull it, it comes out of the braid. You want to go to that end. And you notice there will be a loop here. So there's a little bit of pink yarn at the bottom, and a little bit of pink yarn at the top that I've tied it off. So you want to take this loop, see how it splits here with the pink yarn? You want to go into that, take a pair of sharp scissors, and cut just next to the loop. So this separates it into your top and bottom. See? The X that forms here, one is your top and one is your bottom. It doesn't matter which one you designate as top or bottom, however you will want to make sure to keep them separated as such. So I'm gonna have this one here be the top and this one be the bottom. I'm gonna put a finger in between them to keep them separated, like that. So hold it like that, make sure it's firm, you will not wanna let go. I like to hold it with my left hand so I can use my right hand to hook through here and pull. However, if you're a lefty or you want to use your left hand to pull through, you can hold it like that. So this is how you would hold it on your right hand. So I'm going to transfer it quickly over to my left hand. Hold it like that. Remember, we've still got the top and bottom separated. So then what you're going to do is you're going to grab your hook. And this is not necessary, it's not mandatory, but it is a very useful tool. My first few years weaving, we didn't have one of these, or at least I didn't know that we had one. So I would instead have to shove every individual thread through this reed, individually without the help of a threading hook. It was not the most time efficient, and it was very tedious, to say the least. So this step is tedious enough in and of itself that you really don't need anything adding to that. So I highly recommend using one of these. Okay, so I have this entire one threaded through, so you'll see them all here. What I like to do after I thread them through is pull it up to here, pull it down and make sure that there's no gaps, make sure that there's no doubles. Looks like everything's good here. I also like to come to this side and take a good look and see if there are any loose threads. If there are any loose threads, what you'll want to do, see, found one right here, loose thread. So with this loose thread, what you'll want to do is get rid of that knot that's still there from the warping process. Get rid of that knot, and you'll want to come here, just put it into the next slot and put it through. Now you want to make sure that there's no loose threads at the end of putting them through the reeds, because when you're finally pulling all of these threads through, any loose thread in here is going to get tangled and you're going to have to discard a lot of warp at the end. And you're going to be going for as little waste as possible with this. So I look through, looks like there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. There are 20 threads here, which is good. That is the number that I created. You're going to take this, split it into two, just give it a little knot. This is just so it holds it while you're going on and putting the rest of your warp on the loom. So if this falls or anything, or like, oh no, it slips, this gets tugged on a little bit, these aren't all gonna pop back through here. So just give it a little knot. And there we go, you're ready to get on to your next one, which in my case is gonna be pink. Okay, so you're gonna prepare this warp the same exact way that we did with the blue one. You see you've got the two loops here with the little string. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put your fingers in. See you've got the cross here, the little X. You're gonna put your fingers in, set it up the same exact way as last time. Finger, finger. Take your sharp pair of scissors, cut to the end, and discard this little bit of yarn. So you also want to make sure that there's no knots or anything from when you were creating the warp. Okay. So here we are, we're set up and ready to begin going. So what you're going to do is you're starting a new color, you don't have to tie off or anything. What you're going to do is take your hook and find where you put your last blue thread. There it is. You're just going to move to the next one over and put it in. So you're doing this exactly as if you had not left off with the blue. You're just going to put it into the next one over and continue going. Okay, so we finished with the pink. Or you're at the same thing as with the blue. You're gonna pull it all out, make sure you didn't miss one. See, it looks like I missed one here. And make sure, oh, looks like it came through one of these, so I'm just gonna shove that back in. All right, got it through. See, have a look. Nope, doesn't look like there's any loose bits. Oh, nope, there is. I lied. So you just want to put that through the next one because that didn't fall out of anywhere. All right, pull it through. There we are. So you're going to do the same thing you did with the blue. Tie it off. Put a little tie. Boom. There we are. Doesn't have to look pretty, it just has to hold it. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take off these pieces of yarn that were holding the crosses. You don't need those anymore. I usually do a slip knot so they can just come out. There we are. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the knot on this side and then kind of just detangle a little bit on this side. So you want to just take it, pull it, pull it, pull it. And you're going to want to pull enough of this through so that it touches the back bar over here. So I'm going to do that now. Just detangle a bit. And now the better you were at keeping the cross, the easier this whole detangling process will be. Because it kept the threads more or less in order as they were as the warp was created. So you'll see it detangles fairly quickly. I mean, there still will be tangles. I have yet to create a warp where there are no tangles. So you want to pull through. Now it's starting to tangle again. Kind of keep a hold and rake your fingers through, trying to unknot it enough so that it touches the back bar. Alright, so once you've pulled these through enough so that they touch the back bar here, or go over it, doesn't matter, just so much as it touches the back bar, you're going to move on to our next step, which is putting every single one of these threads through their own individual heddle. Now I'm going to separate them up, so I'm going to be going from this side to this side, so I'm going to separate them, these heddles here, to make sure that there's slightly more, you get these out of the way, there's slightly more on this side than there are on this side. That is because you're going to start doing the heddles. You're going to take from this side and go down. but you want to make sure that there's some heddles on this side so that when we are done warping the loom, it's not unbalanced. There being more heddles on this side than this side, because that will unbalance these frames. Okay, so now we're gonna do that. You've had them all threaded through here. So you're gonna take a heddle from frame 1. So you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're gonna take a heddle from this side, bring it over here, and you're gonna put this first thread that's through this one here, number 1. I'm gonna put it through this hole here. It's easier to do two-handed. You take it, you're gonna pull it through and let it go over there. So now what you're gonna do is that's heddle 1. You're gonna take a heddle from frame 2. You're gonna take warp thread number 2, and you're gonna put it through this heddle here. So you're gonna continue doing that. So you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then when you get to 5, you're gonna go back to 1 and take from this side. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. You're just gonna continue doing that until you've done all of them. Okay, so now that you've pulled all of them through here and these heddles, you come around to the back side of the loom. You're gonna take all of these that you've pulled through, and you're gonna tie them onto this beam here. All right, so you're gonna take them, split them usually into quarters. So take about this much. Get it all lined straight. You're gonna go to this bar here. I usually wind it up a little bit so it's not too long, just so it's about the length or the height of this. You're gonna take your yarn or your thread, you're gonna put it on top and around the back. And once you get to the back, you're gonna split it into 2 pieces. Bring it to each side and tie it once and twice. You're gonna do that on every single one of them. Okay, so once you're done, it should look like this. I only did 3 this time because I had slightly less than I usually do. So what you're gonna do now is you're gonna wind it onto this back beam here. You're gonna need some newspaper. And you're gonna thread it underneath and have it on this bar here, the bar that all the warp thread will be wrapping around. So a different view, have it like that, and then you're gonna, when you twist, you want it to be able to wrap around the bar with the threads going in between it. You want to do this because it keeps the tension while you're weaving, and it keeps these threads from slipping into each other and messing up the tension.
It's recording.
Okay, thank you. So what you're going to do is you're going to hold, to make sure your newspaper threads into it, like this. You're going to hold with one hand, and you're going to hold with one hand this other side. And as you go, just make sure the newspaper is going with the warp thread. Again, you're going to need to stop and untangle it as you go, but you're going to make sure that there's no single loose threads as there is here. And you're going to make sure that there's no knots. So as you go through, you just want to keep even tension on all of them. Wind and just make sure there's always newspaper. And when you get to the end of that bit of newspaper, you're just going to thread another one in and keep going until you reach the end. Okay, that's good. All right, so once you've got it all wound through onto the back, you see you'll have this warp here. It's either too knotted or just too short to go through. So I usually leave about this much. See, it's not very knotted. So I leave about this much. I take my sharp scissors, I cut at the end where it's really badly knotted. Cut it off. And then just discard that. What I do is I take it and part it into the same 3 sections as I did before. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, just, close. Take the first section, and I do the same thing I did on the back. So I tie it onto the dowel, go to the back, split it in half. Oop. So
See, that just came out of the loop because it's just held here like that. You tie it on. Now on this side, you want to be a little bit more careful to keep the tension the same. This is because when you finally finish tying it on and you tighten it up, you want this tension to all be the same across so that when you weave, it doesn't have discrepancies in the tension and you get a solid piece of fabric and there's no odd spaces. So again, you just want to make sure the tension's about the same as you tie. And the third bit, ordinarily I'd do groups of 4 or 5. But you want to make sure the tension's the same. You see how it's going like that? You don't want that. You want to make sure tension's about the same, that when you hold it, it feels about right. Tie it. So, there we go. So I put so much emphasis on the tension because now you crank it. You want to crank it and you want to feel here. You want to feel and make sure the tension's the same. See, if this one was a little bit looser than this one, I got it right on the first try, which is uncommon for me. But if this one was significantly looser than this one, or this one was significantly tighter than this one, you'd want to go back and work through it again. Now you'll see there's a lot of space here. When you weave on a loom, you want them all to be spaced evenly. So what I do is I take the waist bits and I kind of straighten it out a bit, make sure it's the width, and I click, put it up. I click levers 1 and 3. I put it through, and I click levers 2 and 4, feed it, and put some more through. It really doesn't matter how thick it is, you just want it to be thicker than a normal thread or piece of yarn. It doesn't matter how uniform it is either. It's not going to look pretty because this will be taken out of your final weaving. So just shove it through. And this is to space out the threads. So I see here there's less gapping than there was before where it was all spaced out like that from tying it up. So ideally I'd do one more. Yes, so ideally I'd do one more, but I don't have the waist thread. So here we go. Actually there might be a little bit more here. Okay, 1 and 3. And I'll just take some more scraps. Put it through, drop it, beat it. And see now it's almost nearly evenly spaced. And that's it. That's how you warp a loom. Okay. So now what you're going to do is you're going to actually go on to the weaving portion now that you have this all warped. So just going to take length of yarn, a shuttle, and you hold the tail of the yarn here and you just wrap it around the tail like this. The more you do, the more length you'll get out of it. So I've got a good amount wrapped here. I'm not looking to do too much. Cut it, pick up your yarn, and then I'm going to show you how to actually weave, so make sure you get these levers on. So I'm just going to do a 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern right now. There are variations on this. You can do 1 and 3, 2 and 4 for an even weave. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is just simple. You can mess around with it all you want. I'm just doing a simple demonstration. So 1, you put it through the shed here. You leave a little tail at the end just because it's the first one. And press down 2, you take the heddle, beat it, or the shaft, and then you beat it. You put it through the side it came out. Click down 3, beat it. Again, put it through the side it came out. 4, beat it. Again, put it back through the side it came out. And now you're at 4. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to 1. Beat it. put it through. Now there are floater threads at the end that you're going to want to make sure that you catch. There we go. 1, 2. Now you want to pull it so it's just touching the end. You don't want to pull it too tight because then it'll drag it in. You don't want to leave it too loose because then there will be bubbles on the ends. So 2 is just press down. I press 3. Beat it. Pull just so it kisses the edge. Press down 4. Beat it. And you're going to continue doing that. And that is how you weave. So, you see how it's building fabric here? Once it gets all the way up to here, you're going to have trouble getting your shuttle through. There's not going to be enough room. So, what you would do is you would advance it. So, come around this side. I turn it sideways usually, so I'm facing it like this. What you're going to do is, there's these levers back here on this wheel. You're going to, we'll put up there. So, there's these levers here. You're going to lift them both up. Like so, and that loosens this, so you're able to wheel this out a little bit. So you're going to crank it a little bit, drop it, and then you're going to come around the other side. So you're going to come around the other side and you're going to crank it here to tighten these back up. And you just tighten it enough so that your fabric piece comes to about here, so there's still enough room to beat it. If you come all the way, if you bring it all the way to here, if you beat it, there's going to be a gap, and it's not going to be one tight, continuous piece of fabric. So, vice versa, if you advance it too much, you come around on this side, you loosen it, crank it back a little bit, you come to this side, and you tighten it, and it brings it to your sweet spot. You usually want to advance it so the fabric is just about right here, so that way it beats, and you get a tight pattern. And that's it. That's how you warp a loom. Now, if you were to take this piece off, say you finished your fabric, you want to take it off and prepare it for the next person, what you do is you loosen the back here, just like you were doing to advance it. Loosen it, loosen it, loosen it. You pull it out here. Make sure that it's tight. You pull it out here. You hold here and cut here. And then if you're going to leave it without tying it up for a while, you just give it a double knot and let it sit against here so it doesn't all come out and all 3 hours of your work isn't messed up. And then if you're tying it up, you just cut and then tie it back on like I just did. And that is it. That is how you warp and use a loom.